Up next on Authentically Detroit, we're going to recap the 2026 Eastside Candidate Forum, co-hosted by Authentically Detroit, SEIU Michigan, and the Home Rule Project, where candidates in the U.S. House's 13th District, State Senate's 1st and 3rd Districts, plus the State House 9th and 11th Districts came together to discuss their stances on a number of issues impacting Detroit's East Side. And of course, what we're reading from the Michigan Chronicle. Donovan McKinney brought out progressive congressional hopefuls to Horace Sheffield's Bridge Center over the weekend. Their new tagline, their rally cry, "No SHRI for me." We're going to dive into that race. And of course, Abdul Al-Sayed versus Haley Stevens. Abdul has asked his supporters to lay off the unkind attacks against Stevens, while Stevens' campaign doubles down on claims that Al-Sayed has been misogynistic toward women. Keep it locked. Authentically Detroit starts after these messages.
Interested in renting space for corporate events, meetings, conferences, social events, or resource fairs? The Stoudemire Wellness Hub and Mac Market are available for rental by members, residents, businesses, and organizations. We offer rentals for activities such as corporate events, social events, meetings, conferences, art classes, fitness classes, and more. To learn more about our rentals and reserve space, visit ecn-detroit.org/space rental.
What's up, Detroit? Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit. We're broadcasting live today from our living rooms, dining rooms, from StreamYard. I'm Sam Robinson.
And I'm Donna Gibbons-Davidson.
We want to thank you so much for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people here in the city of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. The Eastside Candidate Forum took place this Saturday, July 18th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It was a long day. We are days away, a couple weeks away from the 2026 Michigan U.S. State Senate primary elections. At the forum, held in partnership with SEIU Michigan, residents heard directly from candidates about issues shaping Detroit's East Side. Held in partnership with SEIU Michigan and the Home Rule Project, together we unified resident voices on issues that reflect on their priorities and gave Eastsiders the opportunity to learn where candidates stand on community priorities. Again, if you missed it, be sure to check out the full replay on Authentically Detroit's YouTube channel under our live videos category. On the marathon that was the 2026 Candidate Forum, Donna, we have to shout out Sarah Johnson, and we have to shout out all of the audiovisual folks that were it was a sponsor. Talk about that sponsor and just how this all came together, because it was really something that a lot of people were like, man, that was a really good job that you guys did getting all of those races in one day.
Yeah. I mean, we had so much frustration leading up to it because anytime you are trying to get 30 plus candidates to show up on one day and, just sequence them all and communicate with them all, you're going to have some snafus. And so I think I went in there with a lot of nervousness, and the day just was smooth as butter. I loved our audiovisual team. They did a great job. The sound was good. The picture was good, all of that. Proud of Sarah just did an amazing job making sure everything flowed on time. Everybody was where they were supposed to be. The room was set up properly. And, the entire time you're having to, dictate things and stuff like that. So I was really proud of the fact that we were able to pull it off. And on my way out, there's a candidate, I can't remember which one, who said this, I've been to a lot of forums and this is the best one I've ever been to. And I certainly think it's one of the best. And one of the reasons I think it is one of the best is we're able to get people to talk about substantive issues without attacking each other.
Yeah.
Because the focus is not the attacks. The focus is actually not even saying, what would you do? Because if you what would you do? Well, I did this and I did that. And you go into your track record. It opens up room for people to attack your track record. Yeah. We want to know, where do you stand on these issues? And I think that's the appropriate thing to do. It gives people really meaningful information, but it's also our opportunity to put out our values and share our concerns. So there was a report that I'm trying to remember which news service somebody wrote, and they said, we tried to ask a question about Stellantis and the Mac assembly plant. I'm like, either we asked the question or we didn't. And we got some really good feedback because they quoted all of these answers in the paper. So I thought it was good. I was really proud of it.
Yeah, shout out to Sam Schreiber. That was the MERS news reporter who was
Yeah, well,
there.
I mean,
She's been doing really a better job than a lot of our colleagues covering these state legislative races. It's a lot as a reporter that is obviously focused on the largest race in the state, the governor's race and the U.S. Senate race, getting the story and the dynamics, sharing to the public what's happening, the money being spent in some of these state house and Senate races. It's a difficult task, honestly.
It is. I just want to know what it means to try to ask a question.
I don't know. You have to ask Sam Schreiber. We love Sam Schreiber over here. So
I don't dislike Sam Schreiber. I just felt like it was a little bit of a dig. And maybe it is not.
I haven't read it yet, but
I read it, and it's just a little question. It's not a big deal. But it would suggest that we didn't know how to ask questions, and maybe I just read too much into it. Maybe it's a typo, but I think that we got really good responses to that question.
Yeah, I think especially with the all the candidates in the state Senate District 3, the Eastside seat where we're going to be voting for. All those candidates showed up. I think 8 candidates showed up.
I think it was 9, 8 or 9. Yeah.
10 total on the ballot and 9 showed up.
Yeah.
And to be able to get it done in the amount of time that we did, I thought that was impressive. A number of candidates didn't show up, only a couple in those races in the 13th with SHRI Tanadar and Donovan McKinney. Of course, SHRI did not show up. And then in the first state Senate district, that's Detroit Downriver, Abayash showed up, and then Justin Unwenyu did not. We saw fireworks between Unwenyu and Abayash when they first debated or had a candidate forum that was hosted by Detroit Action. That was at the Love Building, and outside the building afterward, you guys saw the videos of them arguing in the parking lot. No fireworks. We did have some, candidates kind of needing to respond to other things. I think some of the more fringe outsider candidates saying things that were just completely untrue and inaccurate prompted some good back and forths or responses from some of the other more experienced candidates. However, it was a good time. It was really good to see the people that came that had told me, I'm have my ballot and I just haven't turned it in yet because I've been waiting for this candidate forum to see who I should vote for in these specific races. And so the utility of these events, which I think a lot of the times they're not all that useful, I think this one really was, just because of you got to hear how much candidates knew about these topics, these topics that are central to the lives of the civically engaged people within our communities that have to address these concerns, like the Kronos concrete crushing facility in Cadillac Heights, or our water affordability. It was interesting to hear some of the Republican candidates that were like in the 11th that were like, I would support water affordability, when you know that if you were elected to the state legislature, you would not support water affordability because you'd be led by your Republican leadership that would say, no, we are not going to subsidize poor people in Detroit.
I think one of the things that's interesting, though, if I'm being honest with you, what I see is I wondered if there are cracks in the Republican Party, whether or not with data centers coming to town and people being really concerned about energy bills and water usage and some of the other issues, that more people are aware of these issues. And it felt like there was almost bipartisan support around some of the environmental issues and water issues and housing affordability issues that you would not expect. And you see at the federal level, the bipartisan housing bill passed. And it's the first big piece of bipartisan legislation since some of the COVID measures passed in 2020 and 2021. And so it really speaks to me of perhaps at the ground level, some changing politics. And maybe that's me being hopeful.
Well,
But
it was interesting to hear from Eddie Kubinski. He's running in the 11th state district, as well as Matt Stafford. We did have 2 Republican candidates show up. So shout out to them putting themselves, in
and
the Lions.
Eddie was there all day. I was like, he was there. He was like one of the first people there, and he sat through. And I was like, one of these days, I'm going to ask a question. He's just going to get up and leave and be mad. But he sat there. He had to leave early. But the last question he answered was super interesting, Sam, because we were asking about ICE. And he said,
well, he's a libertarian.
I know you think I'm going to be for ICE, but I'm against them. They're untrained. They're unprofessional. And for him, being an Army vet and somebody who really believes in the rule of law and stuff like that, it just never occurred to me that there are people who've been trained in military service who look at these undisciplined guys and say, get off stage. You're no good at what you're doing and you make us look bad. But I kind of got that from him. From Michigan's own Matthew Stafford, what I heard from him. Matthew Stafford, he's the one who stayed, right? But Matthew Stafford also running in the Michigan House 11th District, also in South Warren. Matthew also seemed to be willing to accept the reality that ICE needs to be reined in. In fact, probably one of the most gung-ho persons for ICE was Cranstana Gina, who was really like, listen, these people have done something wrong and that you need to arrest them.
Yeah.
And there was that part of me, as you know, there were a couple of times when I felt unable to not editorialize. And so I apologize to the listening audience. I tried really hard. But there were a couple of times when I just felt like we have to put some things on the record. One of them being ICE, right? Because
we know that they're targeting people based on the color of their skin. That's not something that we can really argue anymore, right? As a journalist, that's a neutral observer, right? I can say publicly, ICE agents are targeting brown people based on what they look like. Yes, we know that. And we know that the Supreme Court has actually allowed them to do that. So it's not really a controversial thing anymore.
It's not. And we need to acknowledge it. And we need to acknowledge what it is to live in a nation where you have to have ID. Because people talk about Nazi Germany, but I was listening to a poet from Southwest Detroit years ago talk about ICE breaking in their homes and, chase them everywhere. And I thought of slave catchers, and I've never been able to get slave catchers out of my mind. This idea that you can be hunted down wherever you are and that you have to prove that you are legally able to be here. And knowing that I had ancestors who could not prove they were legally allowed to be where, they were considered illegals, right? You didn't have legal permission not to be on that plantation where somebody was holding you captive. People are not illegal. Their existence is not, they are according to our laws, but there should never be a law that says that your existence is illegal because it sends such crazy messaging and how did they get here and why are they here? A lot of times they're working for companies that want cheap labor, and those companies never have faced any fines. They never face any prosecution, nothing. But the people who are getting paid pennies for the dollar, because, listen, if you're coming to Detroit and you don't have a green card and you're working in Michigan, chances are you're not getting minimum wage. Your occupational safety and health needs are not being protected. You don't have unemployment. You don't have workers' comp. You're working here with no real rights. Understanding that if you make the boss mad, you can be kicked out of the nation and it'll harm your family. So there's a benefit to employers bringing people like that. And if the concern is that they're taking jobs, somebody is giving them those jobs. And the entities giving them those jobs are doing so not out of the kindness of their heart, but because they don't want to have to pay other people. And so it's a very emotional issue for many of us, me included. I would say, I know we have to move on, that my aunt is Guatemalan. She and my uncle married in the 1960s. When she came to Detroit as an exchange student, she was a medical student in Guatemala when she met my uncle. And he met her and had to marry her. And she had me read a book, Bitter Fruits, where it talks about how the United States helped overthrow the president of Guatemala when she was graduating from high school. And there has been revolution ever since. And so growing up, She always had people from her family and the community who she helped move to America, and they're American citizens now. And so they're my extended family. Mm-hmm. And they would not be allowed in today from Guatemala. And so it is deeply personal to me. I was a little girl looking at those people in these homes. It's not, and anybody who's seen that, you know, it just is. And so anyway, but I want to stick to that.
Yeah, it's a personal issue. And, you know, we heard a range of thoughts. You know, something that Abdul El Sayed has been saying in his primary race up against Haley Stevens is that he doesn't really believe in the left-right dichotomy, that, you know, more people are sort of all over the place politically. I think, I think Eddie and Matthew are good examples of that, being in majority Democratic spaces. You know, Eddie he told me he's worked with Democrats his entire life. There is overlap, he told me, with some of the values and positions, but it was interesting. And of course, he had his Anthony Hudson hat on, the Fix Michigan. Anthony Hudson, of course, left the Republican primary for governor to run as a libertarian. So Eddie is also more of a libertarian than he is a MAGA. And you know, he talked about, I'm the real conservative grassroots establishment, right? But just interesting that those voices, you know, have a place. You know, Donna, it's really remarkable, honestly, that we were able to get both sides of that 11th district primary, where you see these Democratic candidates don't even want to show up because they're afraid of getting clipped or getting, you know, a viral moment against them on social media. I think that was certainly what powered SHRI Tandar and Justin Onwenu's decision not to show up.
Well, I mean, SHRI's never shown up for a debate. He's never, ever engaged in a debate with an opponent. SHRI just buys his stuff. So SHRI doesn't want to be accountable for what he says. He's telling just tremendous amount of lies, and it really bothers me, because run on your principles, run on what you think, run on your track record, but you cannot muddy somebody's track record with the lie and have that be okay with me. And I feel as though he does. We had an actual debate in 2022, I believe, when he was running for Congress the first time.
Yes.
And he was the only one of the, I believe, 12 or 13 people who was running for 13th congressional district who did not show up. He was only one, SHRI Tandar. He doesn't think he has to defend his record, but he says things like Donovan McKinney voted against the minimum wage law. Donovan McKinney voted against reducing the minimum wage law. And he lost that fight because the Michigan legislature reduced the minimum wage from $15 to $12 and had a slower, you know, adoption rate. That's what he did. He was standing up for minimum wage. And so he can't defend that lie. The other thing that happened is Ayush came, and I thought actually he did a very good job. He's a good public speaker. He responded to the questions very well. I wanted to see an open debate with Justin Onwenu, who actually, you know, just graduated from Columbia Law School. So I'm assuming, you know, based on that,
he's a really smart guy,
potential, he can debate.
He can.
But, you know, the kinds of things Abraham shared with me and a few other people yesterday and put it on social media, this MAGA Abraham thing that's going out that suggests that he is aligned with Trump, and he is partially at fault for Trump being elected, and that he stopped the legislature for supporting voting rights. I mean, the kinds of stuff that's out there. And I think, you know, the concerns that I have about some of these races is that the people paying this money to produce these materials are doing it for a reason. And the reason is not good for the people who they are trying to support. There is an intentional weaponization of longstanding conflict between Black and Arab communities that they're counting on. It's divisive in the same way that Donald Trump and MAGA is divisive. And it feels like being divisive in 2026 is the thing to do. So we're going to get Black people to be loyal to us because we're going to make them think this Arab person harmed or disrespected Michelle Obama, or this Arab person stopped Kamala Harris for being, president. When Abdul El Sayed critiqued the fitness program that Michelle Obama had, he wasn't attacking her. He was attacking the approach based on his understanding of nutrition and his public health background. And so it was not a targeted, but when you clip and paste and you just take a little thing out of context, you can make something seem any kind of way. Mm-hmm. So that was my feeling. What else did you pick up on this on Saturday?
Yeah, I did think that the 9th, that's Joe Tate's seat. Joe announced that he's retiring. There's not a lot of name recognition in that field of candidates, right?
Yeah.
You got Anthony Ede, Tony Mua, Arthur Harrington, Willie Burton that showed up on Saturday. Rick Silva is running as the progressive candidate. He was not able to make it. He emailed us. Willie, I mean, on paper, has the highest name recognition because he's been elected. I think he's the only candidate out of that field that has been elected to a position in Detroit. I mean,
Anthony Ede was elected to the Michigan Redistricting Commission. So he was an elected official in a public body that helped redistrict, all of the seats. But that's not, he talked about that. He says, listen, I represent more people than, I was like, yeah, but, the seat that you were in was not a seat
to be to represent them in a
yeah. So I mean, he was elected. I think Willie Burton has high name recognition.
Yeah.
I felt like Arthur Harrington he's a really good debater. He came really prepared to
debate. I mean, he's a great speaker. I think a part of the criticism against him, and people that I'm just turned 29. So my, social is.
But when he says just turned 29, what he didn't tell us on Saturday was his birthday was the next day. We would have had a cake or something.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I should have known that. But yeah, go on, Sam.
Yes, I did celebrate a birthday. I've known people that have known Arthur since he was in high school, right? And his critics will say, oh, he's been preparing for an entry into politics since he was in middle school, and he's not doing it for the right reasons. I think you need to wait and see somebody's voting record before you start attacking them on what you think that they're going to do. However, I think he really probably, he looks strong next to those other candidates. Bryant Hepp as well. I mean, he was really eloquent in his delivery. I think I hadn't met Bryant. I had seen his name in some of his materials, but I didn't realize that it was, this is like a Woodbridge. He is really running to represent the higher income, more educated, that's going to be his base.
Well, I think he's actually, I agree with you. I think I was really surprised by Bryant Hepp and his strength.
Yeah, he sounded good. I mean, of course, he's the only white candidate.
He's the only white candidate up there, but he certainly was very conversant on issues as they apply. I think he's running to represent Detroit. I think he comes from that group, but I think that he's a progressive, and he certainly brings his progressive bona fides. He knows the issues from a progressive standpoint. A lot of people say the progressives are, not really connected to Black folks, but, if you care about air quality, then, if you care about the things I care about, I'm not trying to minimize people's role. Maryam Mahaffey, for example, was one of the most progressive city council members we ever had, and she was a white woman. And so many people learned and grew from her. And I feel like, let me stop here. I wrote a book, The Black Detroit Democracy Handbook, okay? I'm clearly a person who believes that Black people should have democratic power, that we need to be organized to be better represented. So I am not ever going to minimize the importance of Black political power and representation and having our needs there. But I also believe that coalitions are the only way that a minority of people can have power at the polls. Barack Obama was elected president based on a multiracial coalition. If you look at the percentage of people from every ethnic group other than white, he was elected the first time by dramatic majorities, right? And he also had, and he would not have gotten there without white people supporting him, men and women. Now, he didn't get the majority of white votes, but he needed those white votes. And so when Coleman Young was first elected mayor of Detroit, exact same thing, multiracial coalition. White people helped put Coleman Young. He didn't get most of their votes, but if you take 40% of white people and 90% of Black people together, you're going to get a win. We have to be honest. There is no real pathway for anybody to be elected in most state and federal elections in Michigan without that multiracial coalition.
Yeah.
That's true of District 9. That's true of District 11, because District 9 goes through the Grosse Points. It's Detroit and the Grosse Points. District 11 goes through, that's Donovan McKinney's district. And one of the Donovan McKinney's claim to fame, he talked about the fact, I think it was yesterday, I've seen him so many times, that he won every precinct by 60% or more. Here's a Black man in a majority white community winning by 60% or more. And he's the only Black candidate who was able to do that, I believe, in that cycle. And so hats off to Donovan for his ability to have that kind of cross-border representation. He understood the value of coalition politics. You have Letitia Johnson, who's now part of the Working Families Party, Gabriela Santiago Romero, Denzel McCampbell, Donovan McKinney, Abdul Sayed, Stephanie Chang, Ebony Taylor. These are people who have all come together and said, we care about things, and they come from different backgrounds. I think it's important. So I don't want to minimize Brian Hupp, because he surprised me too. I was like, who is this guy? He's pretty good.
Yeah.
And Anthony Eade was good. I want to give him credit. You know, I've known him. He is at CDAD. He certainly knows issues from the CDAD standpoint. Thought he kind of overstated his, electoral background, but he was good at representing the issues. Arthur Harrington is just a really gifted debater.
I mean, he's got a skill. He's got a skill in speaking and public speaking. I think he comes from a church background in which I think he's an active participant and is on stage often speaking. He's in senior homes, and I think he's definitely, from my observation, he's deployed the most on the ground campaign of any of these candidates, right? Yeah. I just see his campaign more.
Yeah, he's reached out to me several times. I want to talk about Toni Mua for a minute, because I love the way she closed it, though.
Yeah.
Her closing statement, she grabbed that microphone and walked out the audience and said what she had to say. And in her closing statement, she alluded to the fact that one of the candidates had tried to get her struck off the ballot, and she won all the way to the appeals court. And my understanding from her and others is that Arthur Harrington is the candidate who did that. And I asked for verification. If that's true, if he did hire Robert Davis to go after other candidates, that's unfortunate, because he's strong enough on his own to do that.
Yeah. And
that action could cost him votes simply because people may not feel they can trust him.
Well, it cost him the endorsement from the LGBTQ Democratic Caucus. It's a state legislative race. I get deploying Robert Davis against Solomon Kinloch. I don't get deploying Robert Davis against the state legislative candidates. When it's like, none of these people are big names. I mean, none of these people are people that you shouldn't beat on your own merit. And so, yeah, definitely a weird decision to make. I think he's still learning. I mean, Arthur is 23, 24 years old. Yeah. I mean, he is a Wayne State law student who works out of Mary Waters' office at City Council. I mean, he's still learning, and I think there are going to be people that.
Well, if he works out of Mary Waters' office in City Council, that tells you a lot, because.
Well, I don't know if it does. Frankly, based on my conversations with him, I don't know if it does.
What I mean is that if you're working there, then there are some old politicos like Sam Riddle, who are going to be advising you. And sometimes the advice that you get,
he's being advised.
Well, I'm not. I'm saying this. So this is me speaking for me. If you're working out of Mary Waters' office, Sam Riddle is in the room, because I know that he's always been very closely connected to her politically.
Sure. I don't know if he's connected at all to Arthur politically.
I said he's in the room. So
yes.
You can disclaim all you want. This is me saying that you have exposure to old politicals, because what I was going to say is that that's the old political tactic, is trying to come after the enemy. And I think that one of the learnings perhaps that any candidate can learn is that you only do that if you have to. Now, in Mary Sheffield's case, Kinloch was coming at her, I mean, with bullets blazing. He was not a victim of that. He had Adolph Mongo and others who were saying many things about her in what is it, Deadline Detroit? Where's Adolph Mongo? Right. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that she started that or who started it, but I think that was more of an equal fight. It was a city council fight. And that one made sense to me, because if somebody's coming after me and I'm reading Adolph Mongo, and if you don't know who Adolph Mongo is, you haven't been around Detroit very long. He is a person who helped get Kwame Kilpatrick elected after coming against him. So we're talking about people who know they've done a lot around here and they know how to make politics work. But to your point, it's 2026. It's House District 11. Nine. House District 9. You don't have to do it. And it was probably him shooting himself in the foot to some extent.
Yeah, I don't think enough people, because there has not been enough reporting on it. I include myself in the people that have not focused my time on contacting Robert Davis over this. I should, and I probably will. Yeah, you didn't need to do that, Arthur. I think he knows that now. Yeah, I think Bryant and Arthur, and we didn't hear from Rick Silva. I was interested to hear what his stump would have sounded like. He is showing up to, Abdul and Donovan events, saying he's the progressive candidate in the House District 9. I do think that Brian showed up and proved that he is also a progressive candidate.
He did.
I think too, the bag is still out on Arthur, right? If he gets elected, obviously in 5 days, we're going to see who his donors are. Mm-hmm. But if he gets elected, I do think it's not going to be Mary Waters or Sam Riddle advising him.
Absolutely not. I agree with that. I think that what I'm saying, though, when you have young people, I always worry about how young people get exposed to things and brought into politics, because politics in 2026 is different. And I've been around Detroit long enough, much longer than you, and I've seen how these things get played, right? I've seen how people come out in the rumor mills and all of that kind of stuff. I've seen Robert Davis deployed over decades. He's not new, okay? We know who Robert Davis is in our community. And so there's these people who have been very influential in political campaigns, and you can see it showing up in MAGA, whatever. And I'm not saying any person is doing that, but you can see these people who are just skilled at that, who are skilled at turning people. They're getting paid well in Detroit right now.
They are. Robert is pay for play, right? And that's when his name is invoked. Understand that a political campaign or a person or group supporting a political campaign is paying for his services.
He's paying for his services, is paying for Sam Riddle's services, is paying for Adolph Mongo's services, is paying
are not
for
doing this.
Mario Morrow's services. There is a backbench of political consultants who have been doing these things for decades. I've watched campaigns. I remember when Sherry McPhail was running against Dennis Archer, and they were able to get her on some stuff. And she looked like she was having momentum, and they got her, you raise your children in Southfield, you're not really here. I remember when there was an article taken out in the Michigan Chronicle, look it up, about a high-tech lynching of Kwame Kilpatrick. And there was actually a lynching tree and hoods when Kwame Kilpatrick was being criticized for some of his practices. And Adolph Mongo posted that. And keeping in mind that Adolph Mongo, prior to that, was coming out against Kwame. And after Kwame paid up, all of a sudden he became a surrogate. That's how Detroit politics are played.
Yeah, it's very sad. Like, think about somebody's like your personhood, and you're just like selling out to the highest bidder, right? That's like really lame. That's just the lamest thing. I'm going to break, my journalistic neutrality here to just say, like, if you're a sellout, like get out of here. Like that's just so lame. Like have a value. We don't have to agree, but like just swapping your positions because what? Like do you have no personhood? No, that's weak to me.
And
That's really weak.
manipulating people's emotions, manipulating people on things is very personal to me. And so I don't like being manipulated. I don't like liars. I don't like being around people who are telling untruths. And if I think that what you're saying is untrue about somebody, I'm going to look at you different. Now, Arthur is a kid. I mean, look, I'm be 63 in September. I'm not coming out against a kid. He is a kid. He's still learning. He's younger. Arthur is 7 years younger than my youngest child. Okay. So I'm not going to come out against him. It was not a good look. He did say, and I think his grandmother was there, and he pointed out his grandmother, and he did say that that he was raised to love everybody, no matter who they love, and no matter how they identify themselves. And that was his attempt to clean that up.
It was. And
I hope that if he's elected, that he keeps that up. Again, I thought all of the candidates seemed pretty good. I thought Willie Burton is just not a good orator, right? But it was kind of funny when at the end of the closing statements, he accused Harrington of looking at all of his notes. He said, well, I guess you just read all my notes in your speech. And it's like, okay, Willie, we didn't hear you say this. Well, maybe it's because you're not the best orator. And I actually wanted to see Willie Burton's notes so I could see what he stood for.
That is his thing. And, Willie is going to get who Willie gets, and he's in there at the bus stops, and at the liquor stores, and at the gas stations. And there's really like guerrilla campaign kind of tactic. Like he's in the streets being like, yeah, I'm right here with you guys. Like, please vote for me. It's compelling. It's a great story. I wish like the Atlantic or somebody would just like spend a week with Willie Burton and have.
Well, maybe you can do that.
I could, do like a 2,000 word, like, because his conversations with people are so interesting. And if you ever sit down, if you ever have you're lucky enough to get a one-on-one with Willie Burton and you sit down with him, it's so clear that his heart is in the right place. It's so obvious.
Eric Thomas introduced me to Willie Burton on Campus Marches a few years ago. So we had a long one-on-one, and he was telling me some stuff, and he was going to send me some stuff, but it was dangerous. And he didn't, Willie is an interesting person. And he definitely, like you said, he brings this man on the street perspective. And I think it's important for us to get that. There were a couple candidates who did that. Let's talk about Senate District 3.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. All those candidates, we had a number of people wanting to respond to stuff that some of the other candidates were talking about. I think having all those women on the ballot. There's quite a bit of men too. Is it a split? Is it even split 4 to 6 or 5 to 5? There's Kimberly Hill, Ebony Taylor, LaTanya Garrett, Tony Reeves, Corey Hall, Adam Ollier, John Conyers appeared. And then at the kind of in the midway point, Gary Hunter showed up, and we allowed him to sit down and participate.
Yeah. I thought that it was interesting to me because I know Kimberly Hill not from Detroit is for Environmental Justice. Yeah. She seemed to be more industry friendly than I would have anticipated in some of her answers. I thought Toyinu had some good points. He seemed to be attacking City Council person Letitia Johnson and instead of answering the questions we asked, using that as an attack point. So his passion came out.
Yeah, he was attacking the people that were already elected and had already been there.
That's his fight. Yeah.
Yes, he is trying to say, that this hasn't been good enough, and everyone that has already done it, we got to get rid of it. Adam Ollier, of course. Even, honestly, I kind of thought, and I think John Conyers, the third, thought that he might have been coming after John Conyers, the people that had been there and hadn't done enough. But it was interesting. He certainly was, one of the more passionate and poignant. I've seen some of his yard signs around my neighborhood. But of course, you know, you pass by Chandler Park and there's a huge Ebony Taylor love fest going on there with all of her family members. Adam Ollier and Corey Hall, you would assume, are the most funded, have the most resources. Corey has received endorsements from Gretchen Whitmer or Debbie Stabenow. Seems like he is the governor's office's pick. He is the currently MDOC community liaison.
Yeah.
He works for the state now. And so state employees, including the governor herself, are putting their support behind him over Adam, which is interesting because Adam also worked very closely with the governor's office. He was appointed by the governor and, of course, worked as a state senator previously. He's already been in the state Senate.
Yes. You know, I think that Adam had an interesting response to ICE. He said, I want to give everybody Michigan state IDs that if they get stopped by ICE, they can have an ID. And that kind of, unleashed some other kind of stuff. I think Adam is a person who has also got some really close affiliation. I'm not certain where he is right now with Wayne County Executive Warren Evans. I think Adam's political missteps actually cost him some support this time around.
Yeah, I think so too. Warren actually is supporting Corey Hall.
Yeah. So I think sometimes you do things, and it's not just the fact that he had bad signatures; it's the way they were bad, right?
Yeah, he did not hire the correct people to do that. I mean, you got to go through them yourself, if not.
Yeah, you have to go through them yourself, and but it was the people have bad signatures, and then you have clearly falsified signatures where everybody has the same address. And so that means that you weren't doing your due diligence. And can I trust you with this? And so I think Adam finds himself a little bit on an island he didn't expect to. And we had an earlier conversation about his campaign war chest. And somebody explained to me, I'm trying to remember who explained to me, and I found this to be true, that the money in his campaign war chest when he was running for Secretary of State, most of it cannot be used in his run for the Senate District 3.
Well, it was a congressional. That was the.
Well, it was because the Secretary of State has higher giving limits.
Yes.
And so if you're going from somewhere with higher giving limits to something with lower giving limits, you can't transfer that money.
As does the congressional. And we assumed that he would put some of the money that he raised while he was running for Congress into a PAC. But I have not really seen. He was on a billboard earlier this year, but that was like a month and a half ago.
Yeah, I think that there was this expectation that he was going to have more juice than he did. At least for me, I thought it was going to be much easier for him.
This was wide. It felt that, right? And then Ebony's Bernie Sanders endorsement came, and that sort of solidified her.
Ebony was in there before he got in there.
Oh, yeah, I know.
But Ebony was in the race before John Conyers, before Choinu, before Ebony. I didn't know the race was going to be this competitive. And then all of a sudden, all these other people jumped in. And I supported Ebony because I've worked with Ebony and also because of Stephanie Chang. And so, during that forum, I certainly did not throw support behind any candidate, but I supported her, not understanding it was going to be a competitive race. I'm just thinking, okay, it's going to be her. And then, you have all this competition.
Yeah.
But there's a disclosure. I mean, I have to disclose it because my name is on one of her flyers and picture. But I thought that, you had some good candidates in the race. I thought Ebony did a good job. I thought Toinu did a good job. I thought LaTanya Garrett did a good job. And I don't really know her, but I thought she held her own.
I thought it was a great, even some of Gary Hunter, which
I like Gary Hunter. Gary Hunter is just Gary. He's not a serious politician.
He's a polarizing figure in our community.
He's polarizing. He's not a serious politician, but what Gary Hunter is going to do is give the voice of the man on the street to me. I don't think that he's going to win. I don't think he's threatened to win. But he gives this anger, and I don't always agree with it, but I think it's good to have people who are speaking from outside the box because it kind of forces people to think outside that box.
He's in a lot of our boxes. I mean, I find Gary Hunter in almost every single event that I appear in the city. He's an outsider, but he's an insider, and I kind of feel similarly. So
yeah,
I am I'm a journalist also. He is the publisher of the Shot News.
Yeah, So
yeah,
I thought it was fun. I thought he was fine. John was a little bit subdued to me, and he said he was sick.
He was holding back. I think he was holding back a lot. And I turned that way, and he would look at me and be like, "I'm not gonna say what I really want to say here." I think he was respecting the other candidates as well, just trying to be mindful of the time.
Well,
he was wearing a mask.
Yeah, he's wearing a mask. It's important to run for office. You bring your A game.
Yes.
I think that there had been some concerns that he was intentionally excluded from flyers and stuff like that. And I do a lot of things. In my free time, I'm putting together these mailing lists, trying to get people on the ballot. And, if you look at the times I'm sitting like 11:30 at night, midnight, because I'm done with all of my other work and trying to, track who came here. But there was never an attempt to exclude anybody. If we get a full race, that's a much better look for us than if we only get our favorite candidates. And so this idea that we were trying to, and I tried to communicate that clearly, we want everybody to bring their A game. And so I certainly hope that perception of bias did not, influence how he showed up, because he said he wasn't feeling well, and I believe him. His campaign manager said she was going to be there, and she was not. And, quite honestly, prior to this, there were accusations made publicly that Eastside Community Network is a transphobic organization. And I really worried that was going to impact people's willingness to show up, and that, our reputation was under attack. And so the fact that people did show up, the fact that it was not until 4 p.m., we were out of there maybe at 4:30, 4:45, people stayed engaged, and so many people came from the community. I just hope people who heard that, and I hope that Chantel and John now realize that there was never an attempt to be excluding anybody or to throw the race to somebody. This is not the kind of forum where we're going to ask a question to try to call a person out. This is actually the type of forum where we want the people who are listening to hear what other candidates think.
And quite frankly, if I believed that was your intention, Donna, I would not have participated, of course. And so,
of course not. I mean, you wouldn't be my co-host.
No, I would not. Let's take a break and let's talk about Donovan and SHRI and Abdul and these ads. We'll be right back with Authentically Detroit.
Interested in renting space for corporate events, meetings, conferences, social events, or resource fairs? The Stoudemire Wellness Hub and Mac Market are available for rental by members, residents, businesses, and organizations. We offer rentals for activities such as corporate events, social events, meetings, conferences, art classes, fitness classes, and more. To learn more about our rentals and reserve space, visit ecn-detroit.org/space rental.
Welcome back to Authentically Detroit. We are going to be talking about some of my reporting over the last few days as it pertains to the 13th Congressional District race between SHRI Tanadar and Donovan McKinney. Last week, we saw congressional hopefuls Malat Kairos from Denver, Colorado, Chris Rabb from Philadelphia. He's a state rep in Pennsylvania. Both of these folks are backed by the Democratic Socialists of America. Donovan McKinney received that same backing today, Monday, July 20th. Last week, he was endorsed by the Metro Detroit DSA. There were pins. There were rallying cries. I hadn't heard it before. Shout out to Chantel and the Bridge Center folks, because they're good at making these political messages. No SHRI for me was the saying.
Yeah,
at
it's
the event.
fantastic.
Yeah, and I had never heard that. I got a pin for my collection. SHRI Tanadar is wildly outspending and wildly outspending Donovan McKinney in this race. He's a self-funded candidate, and we are seeing some of his ads very similarly to Haley Stevens in her race against Abdul Al-Sayed. Ads that are paid for by outside groups supporting Tanadar like they're supporting Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
Donna, you've seen some of those ads and some of those mailers against Donovan McKinney. What do they say?
Well, they accuse him of opposing the minimum wage. They just make all kinds of terrible, I don't even remember all the accusations against him. But this is why, I really do believe we need money out of politics. I don't believe a candidate should be able to spend their own, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 attacking somebody. And I also think there should be some level of integrity behind ads. So with SHRI, it makes me sick to my stomach. I was talking to somebody who said, I was going to vote. Knew I was going to vote for it. And then I saw these ads and I was like, wait a minute. It's, I think that his refusal to debate the issues, to stand up to the community and stand on his political beliefs is problematic. And so that one just hits me in a really bad place.
Yeah. Yeah. The same thing can be said. I think a lot of the Abdul Al-Sayed supporters are telling me that the Obama mailers and advertisements are just completely misleading. When I talked to, Jonathan Kinlock, the chair of the 13th Congressional District Democratic Party in the Wayne County Commissioner, he'll say, Sam, this is just fair. This is absolutely fair game. Politicians from all stripes have used Obama in their political ads, and he is right. Bernie Sanders in 2020 used Obama in a political ad. Clearly, Obama never supported Bernie Sanders' campaign to make it seem like
I don't know if I saw anybody use him as blatantly as Haley Stevens, because the ad that she put out there implied that he had her vote. I support Haley Stevens. He's saying that in this ad and saying all of these things. And so, people believed and said, I voted for her because Obama told me to.
Yes.
So run on your own record. I don't know. I think this is a Senate seat. This is not a Detroit seat. And I don't know that Barack Obama's endorsement plays for every demographic either.
No, I do think he is the most popular Democrat in the world.
But not among young people. I think
young people aren't voting in elections. Young people that hate Obama don't vote.
I think that it's not even hate Obama. I'm not talking about hating Obama. There's a lot of younger people who voted for Obama and felt let down and then voted for Bernie Sanders and felt something. And so I think that, there's an assumption that young people are not going to vote and that 60-year-olds are going to control the votes forever. Some of the young people who they're talking about are 40 years old now.
Right.
And so that millennial who didn't vote at 30 is 40. And I think that we can't make those assumptions, but I know that there are people who absolutely love Obama. He is very popular. And there are people who also feel as though Obama politics are outdated and we need a different brand of politics that is more, and that's what you're seeing in the divide in the party right now. I mean, what you didn't see is Mondami didn't run on Obama politics. He ran on something very different. And I think that that is a political movement sweeping the nation in many places, and those people aren't running on that.
No, yeah. I think Obama's invocation in this race has been highly effective among a base of Haley's voters, which probably would have voted for her anyway, to be honest, because a lot of her, elderly Black Detroit base are not fans of progressive leftism. They're not fans of Arabs, frankly. I think there's a small subset of voters in Detroit that are conservative and racist. And I think that exists everywhere in every community, in every urban place. But I do think that is what is powering. I mean, even in the ads, the attack ads on, Michelle Obama or Gretchen Whitmer, there's an ad that I just saw paid for by the United Democracy Project, which is linked to AIPAC, accusing El Sayed of being a misogynist because he said that Michelle Obama's food program was uninspiring and that Gretchen Whitmer is bought and sold. But the narrative about his hatred of women, a lot of his supporters will ask openly, is that a part of the perception of him as a Muslim?
Yes, it's definitely Islamophobia.
Right.
They're playing into Islamophobia. I want to speak to older Black voters in a lot of instances, keeping in mind that there are many people in my peer group, in my circle of friends, who are definitely supporting Abdul El-Sayed and very vocal and passionate in their support. But you have to remember that there's two factors. One is the devil you know, and Haley Stevens is aligned with the devil we know. The Democratic Party that has stood up for Black people for decades in many people's minds, and has been, Bill Clinton's party, and because Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, this group of people who you trusted to fight Republicans, and now you have a whole bunch of progressives criticizing the one group of people you counted on to support you, and there's that fear that they don't love us. A lot of them are not Black or white, but they are other people of color. America used to be Black and white. You had Black politicians and you had white politicians. And sometimes in Florida and Texas, you had Hispanic politicians. Now you've got Indians, Asians, and Middle Eastern people who are seeking powerful positions and getting them. And I've seen some older Black people talk about the browning of Black power, this feeling that Black people are losing out to other people of color. And this memory of other people of color also being racist. And so, there's a fear of losing ground. You have a congressional Black caucus. We don't have a congressional people of color caucus. What happens when Rashida Tlaib and SHRI Thanadar are the two people representing Detroit. Neither of them is African-American. That feels like a loss of power. When Stephanie Chang won, there are many Black people who felt like, wait a minute, this is a Black person's seat Stephanie Chang is in. She took our seat. Rashida Tlaib, there are people who really feel like she took our seat. And when you felt marginalized, then any loss of representation feels dramatic. Haley Stevens is aligned with old school Democratic politics that is really that binary white-Black.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think the same thought that exists within the Haley Stevens camp about Abdul El-Sayed being unelectable or being, he's Muslim and his name is this way, so the white racist Republicans of Michigan aren't going to support him.
Yeah.
That's the same thing that white racist Republicans in Michigan are also saying to themselves. Is it true? Is it true?
Well, they say that about John James. And, I think the reality is white racist Republicans aren't going to vote for a Democrat.
Right, right.
A white racist Republican is going to vote for a Republican. They're not going to vote for Haley Stevens either.
And it's about turning out the people who are traditionally undecided. It's about turning out people who are not Republican or Democrats. They're just Michigan resident voters.
Or turning out people who feel passionate. You have a lot of races that young people feel passionate about. When Obama was running, Obama would not have been president without young people the first two times, okay? Young people helped animate his campaign. That's the reason why he's always had this affiliation with young people. I'm not suggesting young people don't like him. I'm suggesting they don't trust his politics, and that's two different things. But Obama won because of young people. If anybody is going to win and be Arab, if anybody is going to win and be progressive, young people are going to be the people who push them over the edge. And the question is going to be, what will the election look like this time? Because if young people is showing up for Kamala Harris, she'd be president. Now, some people said if Elon Musk did not mess up the results, she'd be president. But if the turnout would have been different if young people showed up, because what she lost was not necessarily Arab people. She lost young folks who just didn't vote. They didn't vote for Trump. They didn't show up.
Same dynamics when you're invoking Elon Musk's spending in the 2024 presidential election as Israel in the Michigan U.S. Senate primary in 2026, right? They're outspending anybody times 10. It's like 12 to 1 right now, right? It's 50 million to 4 million is the TV ad buys.
And you know what? There's no amount of advertising in the world that is going to just help an Abdul El-Sayed true believer turn to Haley Stevens. There's no amount of spending in the world that's going to make a Haley Stevens true believer turn to Abdul. The only thing that's going to happen is which one of them can get their base out, which one of them can get their voters out.
And that's the scary thing for Democrats leading into the election against Mike Rogers, right? If Haley is the nominee, are we going to see, and I think it's shifting from are we going to see to if Haley is the nominee, she's going to lose half of the Democratic base because they're not going to support her. That's what I'm hearing from folks when I talk to folks. When I talk to Abdul supporters, they say, "Hell no, I will never vote for it." And I'm hearing the similarly.
People,
some Arab voters that are telling me I'm going to vote for Mike Rogers if Haley's the nominee. Despite the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and it's very possible that they'll do that, and it's very possible that whoever wins is going to have to connect with the voters who feel let down and embrace them and show them there's room for them in their campaign. It happens. But the other thing that's happening, and this is why I'm not that concerned, is that there are too many races at stake. You have too many races at stake, too many people who are running progressive campaigns, too many people who are running Republican campaigns, and you have the need to defeat the Republican Congress and to hold Donald Trump accountable, because if we don't have a changeover in Congress in the fall, then all of these big, beautiful bill things that were postponed until 2027 are going to come to pass. That's the real danger. Medicaid cuts don't really show up until 2027, 2028. So, and that was done on purpose so that the Republicans could survive the midterms before a lot of those changes go into effect. I hope the Democratic Party hits those points hard so that people who are Democrats understand what's really at stake. That we vote for people who we like in primaries.
Yeah.
And then in general elections, we vote for people who we vote for party or people who we think are going to defeat the people we don't like.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to ask openly about the electability question. When you had Abdul El-Sayed, Neeraj Wark, who on Twitter, he's a Free Press reporter, just pointed out 8 years ago in the Democratic primary for governor in 2018, he got 96% of the vote. In one part of Dearborn that went for Trump in 2024, right? And so if we are going to be talking about electability, I do think it is worth really examining with some skepticism sort of the conventional wisdom that Abdul, because he's Muslim, that is somehow a risk. I don't.
I agree with you. And I think that we should challenge that. And I don't think that we should vote for people because we think that the other people will like them better. We don't do a very good job of attracting Republicans to cross over to the Democratic side. I think vote your values, vote for the person you think is going to make the kind of change you're going to make, that you want to see. If you are a person who does not want to disrupt the status quo, Haley Stevens is a safe bet. If you're a person who wants to disrupt the status quo, Abdul El-Sayed is a safe bet. If you want to vote for a person who's going to maintain the Trump agenda, then a vote for Mike Rogers is a safe bet. We understand how these things sit, right? Yep. And but again, I think that this is noise. A lot of it is noise. A lot of it is really, really bad, conversations taking place all across America where people on the left are just tearing each other up. You're hearing people who are long-term strategists. I'm trying to think of the guy's name who came out and said, who was Jamie said, oh my God, if you don't like Democrats, don't use our people, don't use our resources. Jamie Harrison. Yeah, people are hurt, and hurt people say things like that, and we need a healing. If we're going to see anything good happen. Other than that, this kind of, in mudslinging and character attacks and You know, Haley Stevens has done things I don't like. She said things I don't like. I think she's light years better than Mike Rogers, if I'm being honest with you. Abdul El Sayed is not perfect. He's light years better than Mike Rogers. That's the other thing. We're not going to get a perfect person.
Yeah, so you're not going to join the angry Abdul supporters. If Haley is the nominee, you plan on fully supporting her over Mike.
Sam, did I tell you that I'll be 63 in September? I've seen what happens when we use political retribution over and over and over again. The most significant time being I did not support Jim Blanchard. And we got John Engler. I just didn't vote. I'm like, Tweedledee, Tweedledum. John Engler was horrible, and he made permanent changes to Michigan that cannot be undone. And I will always live with that on my conscience. So I think for me, I have to understand that as much as I may not like the Democrat who shows up, for me, I care about certain things. I'm going to vote for the person who I think cares about my community more than the other person. I'll do it in the primaries. I'm going to do it in the general election. I encourage everybody else to do the same. I know you have to go.
Yeah, we want to thank you all. And certainly, if you want to appear on our show, if you have discussions, topics that you want us to talk about and tackle on Authentically Detroit, please hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can visit our website at authentically-detroit.com. Donna, I want to thank you. I want to give my shout out this week to you and Sarah and the whole ECN team for doing just a fabulous job in informing our community and informing really the state, because a lot of folks have not heard from these legislative candidates. There's a huge Senate race and a governor's race that's taking up a lot of airtime and print space. So thank you, and thank you everyone supporting ECN as we try to do the right thing out here. We're just trying our best, aren't we?
Yeah. Back at you, Sam. Shout out to you. It's the first time that you sat in on one of these forums. And, it was a marathon session and, it was great. And I just really appreciate having you there. It's kind of scary because okay, we haven't done this before. Orlando's usually in this seat and you came in and it just went really, really well. And so I was really proud of our team, all of us. And it's when good people come together and try to do a good thing, the change happens. And part of it is just informing people. Knowledge is power. Thanks, Michael. Thank you. He came back out of vacation on a Saturday to make it all happen. So we appreciate that too.
Thank you guys for showing up for us. All right, now we'll hear from you next week.
See you later.
Bye.